Bohemian Rhapsody, directed by Bryan Singer, director of X-Men Days of Future Past, tells the story of iconic singer-songwriter Freddie Mercury and his band Queen. Freddie joins Queen in 1970 and eventually they begin recording songs and touring together. Before long, Queen becomes an international sensation, and both Freddie and the band experience the highs and lows of the music industry. As Queen experiences more and more success, Freddie's life becomes more complicated and lonely even. We watch him continue to evolve as he experiences what this lifestyle has to offer. Alright, so Bohemian Rhapsody was a film I've been very much looking forward to. I've never been massively into Queen, I enjoy their music a lot, but they've never been a band for me that I just go back to over and over again. I did really love the trailers though. Each time I saw the trailer for this film, I was really impressed with the stylistic decisions, the way Rami Malek embodied the character and persona of Freddie Mercury, and I was really impressed with the direction this story seemed to be headed. Ultimately, I enjoyed this film a lot. It has a few issues, but I think this is a very entertaining, very engaging, and even emotional biopic. I can't say I wasn't satisfied. It was almost everything I hoped for. It delivers in a lot of ways. This really does start with Rami Malek though. This is one of the more impressive performances I've seen in quite a while. Definitely one of the best I've seen this year. Hopefully an Oscar contender. I think it honestly should be, despite the reviews not being great. There truly is a lot riding on his performance specifically, because he's asked to bring an iconic figure to life in a way that feels realistic, entertaining, and cinematic all simultaneously. I found his performances to be extremely charismatic as he portrayed Freddie Mercury as a figure that has his flaws, but ends up being someone that you always want to root for and see succeed. He's a complex figure, and there were a lot of things going on in the background that the fans didn't see on the stage that played a huge role in shaping who Freddie Mercury actually was. I think the film actually does a really good job of diving into his private life and showing us how he felt a lot of loneliness despite all of those great successes he experienced over the course of his career. I do have a slight complaint though. I feel like this film is a little watered down, a little too safe, and that prevents it from reaching greater heights. There's aspects to Freddie's personal life, such as his romances, his homosexuality, and how that was perceived at the time, and even the drug and alcohol use that are hinted at and mentioned even, but not explored in any deep way. It's difficult to say whether the studio felt it was a good idea to do this, or the band didn't want themselves or Freddie to be portrayed in a negative light and they prohibited any real gritty stuff from being shown. It's hard to say, who knows, it's kind of guesswork at this point, but regardless of the reason, this film plays it fairly safe, and I think that's to its detriment. Another criticism I have is the first act. It felt like things progress pretty quickly. It goes from Freddie joining the band, then they do their first gig, and then minutes later they're recording an album, and then they're world famous superstars not long after that. I think the first act specifically does a somewhat poor job of illustrating the passage of time and how the band progresses during that time. You sort of jump from one iconic moment to the next, and it comes at the expense of a story that feels like it flows naturally. This movie is already 2 hours and 15 minutes long, so clearly the goal here was to focus on how fame and success impacted Freddie Mercury and Queen as a band, and not so much how Queen came to be and their creative process and all that good stuff. It's just a different approach, and they clearly wanted to place more of an emphasis on Freddie Mercury's personal growth. Luckily, the second and third acts were both great. I had a lot of fun watching this movie, and it's definitely a crowd pleaser. Anytime Queen is playing a concert, you feel that energy, and you feel how special they were as a band. Anytime you have a film like this that exists with music as a backdrop, it's important that you make the live performances feel energetic and exciting. This film does that, and it also makes the experience feel like an emotional journey through the cinematography, actually. There's a lot of shots that do a great job of highlighting those highs and lows that Freddie goes through. They highlight his successes, and they also highlight the loneliness he experiences despite all those great successes. I did feel like I got to know Freddie Mercury fairly intimately in this film. I think they could have taken it a little bit further for drama purposes, but I do think that overall the film does him justice. Now for the music. It's great. As I mentioned, the cinematography plays a big part in how energetic and fun the concerts feel, but the music more than plays its part. I didn't get the vibe that a lot of this was performed live because I think they wanted to capture or use as much of Freddie Mercury's voice as possible, so they focused more on syncing it up than recreating the musical aspects. Regardless, I think it works great, and I think that's the right call considering how iconic his voice was and how recognizable it is. Recreating it would be impossible. And it's different with a biopic than it is a movie like, say, A Star is Born, where they're not performing as real people. They need to make this feel as real as possible, and I think the music does that and then some. Queen has a lot of really iconic songs. My brother was pointing out that to me on the car ride on the way back after the movie, that Queen has more iconic songs than anyone that readily comes to mind. Each time those iconic songs play and they show up in the film, it's pretty exciting, even for people that aren't major fans of Queen like myself. You'll recognize these songs regardless of your love for the band or lack thereof. And that nostalgia is pretty powerful. Ultimately, I think Bohemian Rhapsody is a very good film that probably could have been a little bit better had it elected to take a few more risks. It's still very exciting and actually pretty emotional too. There's a handful of scenes that take place later in the film that will almost certainly bring you close to tears, near tears or crying at the very least, one of those things. And these heartfelt moments will stick with you. And they shouldn't be overlooked because despite the flaws that exist, this movie is pretty emotional and it will get you feeling a lot of different things. I had a great time with this one, and I'm really surprised by the scores it's receiving from the critics. It's not perfect, but it's better than you're hearing from other critics out there. As for the pros cons, for the pros, I thought Bohemian Rhapsody delivered an outstanding Oscar-level leading performance from Rami Malek, a very emotional and engaging biographical story, some really nice cinematography that adds atmosphere and emotion, and good music that adds similar quality. As for the cons, I say the film plays it a little too safe, and some of the pacing is a bit off. I'm still going to give Bohemian Rhapsody a 9 out of 10 and recommend you go check it out in theaters. I think most will enjoy this film whether you're a huge Queen fan or not. So did you guys see Bohemian Rhapsody yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know your thoughts on Queen as a band. I've always enjoyed their music like I mentioned, but I've never been a massive fan. So maybe you guys can change my mind in the comment section. I do like classic rock. I don't listen to it too much, but I do like it for the most part. And I feel like after this movie, I'm more interested in Queen, and I'll probably go listen to them sometime soon. Either way, this is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next video.